The budget in Washington this year is going to be extremely difficult. I hope we can get to this budget resolution or find a path forward very soon.
Listen, the Democrat spending spree is scaring the hell out of the American people, and it's hurting our economy. Not doing a budget, Democrats are passing up a critical opportunity to create jobs and to get our economy moving again. And they're banking on the fact that the American people won't even notice.
Well, Republicans have been talking about how Democrats are not passing a budget this year. They're very upset about that. And then Saturday night, President Obama asked for $50 billion more for financially strapped states. That's deficit spending. And Republicans reacted harshly to that as well, as you might imagine. We're back with the panel. Why not a budget, Mara? And is it hurting them politically?
I think that spending is hurting them politically. Whether or not they pass a budget, I don't know if that's hurting them. There are two numbers that are important to voters this fall, the unemployment rate and the size of the deficit. And the problem is that in the short term, to increase hiring or to save public jobs like firefighters and teachers, you have to spend money. Or another way to fight the recession would be to give tax cuts, which also increases the deficit. The problem is that because we had such a big deficit to begin with, and a lot of the president's initiatives increased it, he doesn't have the kind of psychological space to do deficit spending as a recession-fighting measure. The most important thing he could do for the markets, who, by the way, are not punishing America the way they're punishing Greece and some of these European countries just yet, is to come up with an actual credible plan to take care of the structural deficit over time. And, you know, both parties haven't done that.
Charles, there are many in this town who say this is all about politics, and Democrats in the midterm election don't want to have to deal with these tough votes. This week, the White House budget director was asked, why doesn't the administration just put forward spending cuts and identify all of this and send it to Congress? Here's what he said.
It just comes down to a question of whether it's a fruitless exercise because you have very low probability of success in the current environment.
And he's talking about Democrats in the House and Senate. There's a low probability that they'll deal with what they want to deal with.
Absolutely. This is all about election year politics. And I think for some Democrats, where in the past, if you vote for spending, you know, it's going to go to state and local governments, as Mara says, to save the firemen and policemen, it would be popular, but not this year. And I love the ploy. This is the oldest one in the books. When a state and local government has been widely overspending and is corrupt, inefficient, and completely out of control, and anybody dares suggest a 1% cut in the budget, immediately what's said is, if you do that, we're going to have to shut down the fire stations and policemen. It's always the fire station and policeman's first strategy, as opposed to maybe culling a person or two at the back of the DMV, or sitting in the records department who hasn't worked in 10 years. It's always the firemen and policemen, who are a small percentage of the whole workforce. But that's how you do it. They're going to try to sell this new mini stimulus as saving the firemen and policemen. And remember, when you hear it, it's a fraud, because you could easily hold all of those jobs and cut elsewhere, which is not done. The private sector has had huge cuts in employment, has gotten lean, but not state and local.
Steve.
Well, I think this is political cowardice of the first order. I disagree with Mara. This will have a political impact. Very few things leaving Washington matter, I think, in a general sense. One of them is not passing a budget. Every family does it, which is something Republicans are going to say again and again. Cities are supposed to do it. States are supposed to do it. This is how businesses operate. If you can't pass a budget, as John Spratt said in 2006, you can't govern. And what's interesting here is Republicans, conservative Republicans in the House, have offered a balanced budget that balances the budget in the same 9-year budget window that the White House can't possibly do. The White House has put forward a budget, suggested a budget basically, that has deficit spending 7 to 10% in all of the out years. This is a huge problem. Republicans have offered, in the House, have offered a similar budget that balances the budget in 10 years. And their argument is a simple one. They say, look, if we're going to be critical of them for not doing this, we should do it ourselves. The question is whether moderate Republicans will support them and how it will be attacked or demagogued politically. But budgets matter. I think it'll be a big deal.
I don't think Republicans could get a majority of their own
they're not going to get
for that.
No,
budget.
they're not going to get a majority of vote. But they're actually putting forth a proposal, which is something that.
But the majority of Republicans wouldn't vote for it.
Not at this point. They're not going to get a vote in any case.
Last word.
If Democrats who are in charge can't produce a budget, they're going to look incompetent and out of control. I think it is going to hurt them.
That's it for the panel, but stay tuned for an example on Capitol Hill that you always need to be aware of your surroundings.